This afternoon, I first want to just share with folks the latest case count since yesterday. We have 91 new cases to report in Harris County outside of the city of Houston. And thankfully, no new fatalities to report. We are continuing to see that increase in numbers, but we'll be monitoring. On a personal note, I just wanted to say it's been over a year, a little bit over a year for me in this position, and we've been through chemical fires, flood events, now this pandemic. And I just want to say how proud I am and honored to serve as your county judge. It brings me no joy to be the person that is on TV when there's a disaster and bad news to deliver, but it's such an honor to serve all of you and to know that the things that would normally tear us apart, these crises, are what bring us together closer as a community. Right now we're talking about flooding, and hurricane season is what we're going to be talking about today in the midst of a pandemic. But folks, we'll get through this, and we'll get through this hurricane season, we'll get through this pandemic, just like we always do through these disasters, and come out stronger and more united on the other side. I wish I could stand here today and say that because of the COVID crisis, we all get a break this year from worrying about hurricanes, that we don't have to worry about a catastrophic storm. But the truth is, we can't simply ignore that. This week is Hurricane Preparedness Week, which means we're less than 30 days away from the start of hurricane season in 2020. That is, it'll start on June 1st. Hurricanes don't wait for convenient times to arrive. Floods don't give us the courtesy of giving us a timeout just because there's another disaster we're dealing with. And I know this is a difficult time for our community, but as emergency managers, as public servants, it is my job, it's all our jobs to make sure that we're working together to prepare for a worst case scenario and for whatever may come our way. Before I provide information on what residents should do, let me share very briefly what we're doing here to prepare. We continue to be activated for the COVID response, but our Office of Emergency Management has been working to prepare for a potential hurricane response as well. We've been in touch with local responder agencies to make sure that our plans are up to date. We've worked with FEMA to deliver better wireless emergency alert notifications that can have a longer character count. Those are the alerts to your cell phone. They can be delivered now in Spanish as well. We've been exercising plans. We've been working with the Red Cross, for example, on contingency plans for sheltering during COVID-19 if needed, planning for any changes to the usual hurricane response that we have to make based on this virus. Of course, our flood control district continues to work full speed ahead. Our flood mitigation projects are still moving forward faster than ever before. Last year, we tightened development standards in Harris County outside the city of Houston as much as legally possible so that folks in Harris County don't flood their neighbors downstream as they build. But at the end of the day, like with COVID, it's on all of us to prepare. Every resident in Harris County is part of our emergency management team, and the steps you take at home make a huge difference as to what all we can do also to adequately respond. So here's 3 things you can do now if you're able, seeing that hurricane season's around the corner. And you'll remember last year we had those heavy rains and flooding in the Kingwood area in May. So it may not wait until June 1st to come. The first thing is to do an insurance checkup. Think, if a hurricane hits, if there's a heavy rain, if there's a flood, will I be covered? According to FEMA, just 1 inch of water in your home can cause $25,000 in damage. Now's the time to check with your insurance company. Make sure that you are actually covered. A lot of insurance documents or policies don't cover flooding, so whether you're a homeowner or a renter, you need flood insurance separately or in addition to that to ensure that you're covered. That's the only way families can protect themselves financially from a flood. Most importantly, new flood insurance policies take 30 days to take effect. So with hurricane season just a few weeks away, it's important to begin taking those steps now and make sure that we're on time for that. For folks who may be experiencing financial hardships, FEMA extended the grace period this year to renew flood insurance policies. Normally there's 30 days. If you let it expire, you can extend it within 30 days. Now they're allowing 120 days. So if your policy expired between February 13th and June 15, 2020, you're gonna have 120 days to renew it. If we have a historic rain, or if the rain falls where our flood control projects are not finished and your home floods, the county may not have enough damage to qualify for federal disaster aid. That's what happened during the May rains last year in Kingwood. If we do qualify for federal disaster aid, it may still take a while for that aid to arrive. And that aid will never be enough to make you and your family whole again. So the only guaranteed way to make your family whole again in the event of a flood is to have flood insurance. This is a crucial point. Just because you've never flooded before doesn't mean that you can't flood in the future. What we've seen, what we saw with Imelda, what we saw with the rains last May, was localized heavy rain. Imelda, it was almost Harvey levels, but in a particular area. And so that may strike a different area this year. Perhaps an area where our drainage can't keep up, where our projects are not done, where there are different issues. And so it's a myth that you only need flood insurance if you're in a flood zone. Of the almost 4,000 homes that flooded from Imelda last year, 62%, so over 2,400, were outside the 100-year floodplain. 77% of folks who self-reported, after a survey we did for folks impacted by Imelda, 77% of those folks reported not having flood insurance. And if they'd had flood insurance, they would have received that aid. I remember visiting those homes after the rains in May, after the rain in Imelda, and it was night and day. The folks who had flood insurance were getting those claims answered, getting back on their feet. Those that didn't, we did everything we could to help. We stood up a relief fund. We got federal funding as quickly as we could, loans during May, disaster recovery funding after Imelda, but it will never be enough. And so I really encourage, if folks are able to either extend their flood insurance, there's this additional grace period this year because of the financial hardships. If you have it, check and see that it includes flood insurance, that it hasn't expired. And if you are able to purchase flood insurance, it's something that's really important, also recognizing the difficult financial situation people are going through. You can find more information at readyharris.org also on how to sign up. The second thing you can do, besides doing an insurance checkup, is making sure you have a kit, a hurricane preparedness kit. Having a kit doesn't have to be expensive. You probably have what you need at home, particularly given the pandemic and the fact that folks have been making sure they have enough supplies to quarantine. You just have to ensure you have supplies for around a week. Non-perishable food, batteries, particularly medications, whatever you need for your pets, just make sure you have that. And the last piece is knowing your zone. We've been fortunate with Hurricane Harvey and since then not to have to order an evacuation, but that doesn't mean it can't happen again. So now is the time to find out if you live in a hurricane evacuation zone. You can find the map at readyharris.org that has the zip zones, which are the ones we decide, which zones evacuate at which times, if that were to be necessary. And the map as well, the route that you would take. Most importantly, think about if you need to evacuate, where would you go? a friend or a relative's house, where would you go? How would you get there? And so that's what we want. It helps us a lot as first responders, as emergency managers, for everyone in the community to help take these steps. Let me close by thanking the local media for doing this part with all of this. The media are a vital link between us and the community during an emergency. And so whether it's COVID or whether it's a hurricane, a heavy flood, a heavy rain, or a flood, and truly this is the fourth recommendation really is to stay tuned to the local news outlets who will always have the latest information. So when disaster strikes, we'll always keep you informed. But I wanted to make sure that folks are aware that as much as we wish we could avoid it, hurricane season is right around the corner this year. I'll repeat my remarks in Spanish, then Jeff Linder is here with the Flood Control District to give an update. He's a meteorologist, as you know, who's been very actively monitoring the predictions for this year and is always there as soon as there's a threat of bad weather. Dr. Shah will also make some remarks, and then we'll be available for questions. Repito en español brevemente los comentarios del día de hoy. Primero, en cuanto a los nuevos casos, desde ayer tenemos en el condado Harris, fuera de la ciudad de Houston, 91 casos nuevos que reportar. Menos mal no tenemos ninguna muerte que reportar desde ayer. Seguimos viendo ese crecimiento en el número de casos y continuaremos reportando la información. Desde un punto de vista personal, ya va un poquito más de un año desde que soy en esta posición y juntos hemos pasado por eventos químicos, incendios, inundaciones y ahora esta pandemia. Y quiero decir lo agradecida y orgullosa que estoy de poder ser su juez del condado, explicar que realmente no me alegra tener que traer siempre malas noticias, pero es un honor poder servir. Y me enorgullece especialmente el hecho de que los retos que puedan dividirnos, al contrario, nos unen cada vez más. Hoy voy a hablar acerca de las inundaciones, de los huracanes, la temporada de huracanes, todo esto en medio de una pandemia. Pero miren, vamos a pasar esto como pasamos todos estos desastres. Unidos, saldremos del otro lado más unidos y finalmente más fuertes. Me gustaría poder decir el día de hoy que dada la crisis del coronavirus, este año no hay temporada de huracanes, pero la verdad es que sí la hay. Esta semana es la semana de preparación contra los huracanes, porque ya estamos a menos de 30 días de la temporada de huracanes, empieza el 1 de junio. El año pasado, en mayo, tuvimos lluvias bastante severas en el área de Kingwood, que inundó muchos hogares. Entonces puede que la temporada de huracanes no espere ni siquiera hasta junio. Los huracanes no van a esperar hasta que sea conveniente, no nos van a dar un espacio hasta que pase el virus. Y sé que es difícil para la comunidad saber eso, pero nosotros estamos trabajando, a medida que estamos trabajando el coronavirus, también nos estamos preparando para la temporada de huracanes. Entonces, antes de dar información acerca de qué pueden hacer los residentes, les quiero compartir un poco de lo que hemos hecho acá para prepararnos nosotros. La Oficina de Manejo de Emergencias está trabajando en esto constantemente. Hemos trabajado con las agencias de otras ciudades, condados, regiones, para asegurarnos que nuestros planes estén al último minuto todos alineados. Hemos trabajado con la agencia federal FEMA para modificar las notificaciones inalámbricas, las que llegan a su celular. Ahora podemos enviar más caracteres, las podemos enviar en español, como ya sabe. Hemos hecho ejercicios de los planes para saber exactamente qué hacemos cuando haya una situación, una inundación, un huracán. También estamos planeando qué cambios debemos hacer a nuestros planes dado el coronavirus. Por ejemplo, estamos trabajando con la Cruz Roja en los planes de refugio. ¿Cómo haríamos para ofrecer refugio en medio de este virus? Obviamente, los proyectos de control de inundaciones continúan moviéndose rápidamente, más rápido que jamás. El año pasado también desarrollamos nuevos estándares de construcción de desarrollo en el condado Harris, fuera de la ciudad de Houston, para que los desarrolladores no inunden a las personas río abajo cuando construyen. Esos son los estándares más fuertes que pudimos diseñar bajo el marco de la ley. Pero al final del día todos tenemos que prepararnos, incluyendo cada residente. Es igual que con el virus. Los pasos que tome cada miembro de esta comunidad nos ayudan finalmente a todos, y ustedes también son parte del equipo de manejo de emergencias. Hay 3 cosas que puede hacer hoy mismo para protegerse contra un huracán, contra una inundación. Piense primero, si hubiera un huracán, si hubiera una inundación, ¿estaría yo cubierto? Esa es la primera pregunta, es revisar su seguro, su póliza de seguro. De acuerdo a FEMA, la agencia federal, solo 1 pulgada de agua puede causar más de $25,000 en daños. Este es el momento de revisar con su compañía de seguros, asegurarse que esté cubierto, saber dónde están sus documentos de seguro si hubiera necesidad de usarlos. La única manera de protegerse financieramente contra una inundación es tener una póliza de seguro contra inundaciones. Puede que su póliza de seguro del hogar no lo cubra, entonces es importante ver eso. Las pólizas nuevas de seguros contra inundaciones toman 30 días en ser vigentes. Con la temporada de huracanes a semanas nomás, es tiempo de empezar a mirar eso. Para aquellas personas en tiempos difíciles financieros, sé que muchos están pasando por esto, FEMA, la agencia federal, está extendiendo el periodo que les da a los clientes para renovar las pólizas de seguro de inundaciones. Normalmente dan 30 días, ahora son 120. Entonces, si se le ha vencido la suya desde febrero 13 hasta junio 15, si se le vence su seguro de inundaciones, contra inundaciones, tendrá 120 días para renovarlo. Más importante, es la única garantía que hay para que regrese a donde estaba antes de una inundación. Nosotros, por ejemplo, después de la lluvia en mayo, pedimos ayuda del gobierno federal y no calificamos. No había suficiente daño para que el gobierno federal nos enviara apoyo. Aún cuando llega ese apoyo del gobierno federal, tarda tiempo en llegar. Lo vimos en mayo, lo vimos en Imelda el año pasado. Las familias que no tenían seguro contra inundaciones sufrieron mucho. Hicimos nosotros lo que pudimos por apoyarlas, pero nunca va a ser suficiente. Aquellas familias que sí tenían seguro pudieron recibir la ayuda inmediatamente de la compañía. Y esa es la única manera de realmente protegerse. Solo porque no se haya inundado su hogar en el pasado no significa que no se pueda inundar. Las últimas lluvias que hemos visto, tanto en Imelda como en aquellas lluvias en mayo, han sido lluvias localizadas. Muchísima lluvia, casi niveles de Harvey, pero solo en un área específica. Eso puede suceder este año. Puede que sea un área donde no tenemos muy buen drenaje, donde todavía no se haya completado el proyecto de control de inundaciones, o simplemente tanta lluvia que sea imposible manejar. Entonces es un mito el hecho de que si vive fuera de un plano de inundación no se va a inundar. Todos en este condado deben tener seguro contra las inundaciones. Vivimos a meros pies del nivel del mar. De las casas que se inundaron durante Imelda el año pasado, se inundaron casi 4,000 casas. De esas, el 62% estaban fuera del plano de inundaciones de 100 años. Hicimos una encuesta de aquellas personas que se inundaron y el 77% de las personas que respondieron a la encuesta nos dijeron que no tenían seguro. Son personas que no creyeron que fueran a necesitar el seguro. Entonces, si usted piensa que no lo necesita, considere nuevamente. Información acerca de cómo comprar seguro está en readyharris.org. Entonces, el primero es revisar su póliza, extenderla si es necesaria y si puede. Sé que es un momento económico muy difícil, pero si puede, intente conseguir seguro contra las inundaciones. El segundo punto es construir un kit de preparación contra los huracanes. Ya prácticamente todo el mundo tiene eso en la casa, por lo que estamos preparados para la cuarentena. Comida, medicina, comida para los animales, las mascotas, asegurarse que tenga todo lo que necesita si tenemos que quedarnos en casa más tiempo por un huracán, baterías, linternas, todo eso. Y finalmente, el tercer punto, conozca su zona. Durante el huracán Harvey y más recientemente no hemos tenido que evacuar, no ha sido esa necesidad, pero es posible que sea necesario en un futuro durante un huracán más fuerte. Entonces, pregúntese, si tuviera que evacuar, ¿a dónde iría? ¿Cómo saldría de este condado? Puede ver su zona de evacuación también en readyharris.org. Entonces esos son los 3 pasos. Finalmente solo darle las gracias a los medios, tanto en el coronavirus como en una situación de inundaciones o de huracán. El cuarto punto prácticamente es estar alerta a los medios de comunicación. Tendrán ellos siempre la última información y nosotros compartiremos la información con ustedes. Entonces, adelante con este reto. Esperemos que no hayan lluvias, inundaciones, huracanes, pero si los hay, preparémonos. Muchas gracias. Ahora escucharemos del meteorólogo Jeff Linder y después del Dr. Shah. Finalmente responderemos todos a preguntas. Thank you so much, Jeff Linder.
All right, thank you, Judge. So yeah, just looking at the seasonal forecast this year, you're going to hear a lot about that as we get into the month of May. And, you know, we start talking about numbers in an active season, and it does look like it is going to be an active hurricane season. One thing to keep in mind is just because we're looking at an active hurricane season doesn't mean we're going to get hit by a hurricane or even a tropical storm. However, that also means you have to prepare every year. So we've had active seasons where we've had nothing impact the state of Texas. We've had quiet seasons where we've actually been impacted by tropical storm and hurricanes. So we have to make the preparations every year for the hurricane season. Looking at this year, somewhere between 16 and maybe 18 named storms is the current forecast. On average, we have about 12 in a given year, so as you can see, an above average season. The number of hurricanes, probably about half of that, and a hurricane is 75 mile-per-hour winds or greater. So we're looking anywhere from 6 to 7 hurricanes, and then the potential for 3 to 4 major hurricanes. And a major hurricane is winds of 115 miles per hour or greater. And so just looking at some of those indicator factors, it does look like an active season for the Atlantic Basin. And so that brings us to the preparation standpoint. Right now it's May, so we have about a month to go before the start of hurricane season. It's good to start working on those preparation measures just like we do every year, this time of year, those hurricane kits, those plans, those evacuation plans that the judge talked about. And of course, part of that is flood insurance, and everybody should have flood insurance year-round, just not during hurricane season. As we know, we can have floods outside of hurricane season in April and May or even in the fall. And so we need to have that flood insurance, have it in place for this time of year as we get ready for that hurricane season. And of course, as the judge mentioned this year, we have the COVID-19 virus on top of our hurricane season. Obviously, this is going to continue through the summer months and hurricane season. And so we have to factor that into how does that affect things. And everybody needs to factor that into their plans. How do you make those plans with the knowledge that there potentially will continue to be the virus through the summer months? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Shah.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Jeff. My name is Dr. Umair Shah. I'm the Executive Director of Harris County Public Health and the Health Authority for Harris County. And I just want to keep my comments brief. I want to say that, first of all, that it is the beginning or getting to close to the beginning of hurricane season, and I think that reminds us that also that mosquitoes are right around the corner, and we want to make sure that people are also thinking about mosquito repellent and all those things about making sure they drain water off their properties, et cetera, so that we do not have mosquito breeding. So we'll get into more of that in a little bit later in the summer. But as the judge and Jeff mentioned, that we also know that summer is approaching and it's warm outside, and we also recognize that people are really at the same time trying to do everything they can to help us fight this virus. And COVID-19 continues to be out there. It continues to be something that we are concerned about. And I want to just remind everybody that as things are reopening, if you are not essential, meaning that you do not need to be out for a reason, that you continue to do everything you can to stay at home. I myself, as a physician, as a father, my family, we are staying as close to home as we can. And so I just want to make sure that the advice that I'm giving to my own family is also the advice I'm giving to our community, which is this is a virus that has been really deadly across the globe, as we all know. And certainly we all together as a community have fought this virus, and we've done a remarkable job thus far, but we want to make sure that we continue to do that. So I just want to remind everybody that if you do not have to be out, please don't go out. And if you do need to be out, please do all the things that we've been talking about in terms of social distancing, 6 feet apart, hand hygiene, and making sure that we wear the facial coverings, cloth coverings. And then finally, if you're sick, we want to make sure that you certainly are staying away from others. And the last message is about testing, and we want to make sure that we remind everybody, readyharris.org. You can go to get tested whether you have symptoms or no symptoms. You can get tested at any of our, either the 2 fixed sites with FEMA in Baytown or Katy, or mobile testing sites. In addition to that, you can call 832-927-7575, 832-927-7575. And with that, I just want to remind everybody, as we prepare for hurricane season, prepare for mosquito season, we want to continue to stay prepared for, obviously, COVID-19 and what this pandemic, what lies ahead of us. So with that, thank you very much. Judge.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaw and Jeff. We'll take questions now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start off with the hurricane topic first, then we'll position to COVID. First off, with regards to the situation we're dealing with COVID and a hurricane, what kind of changes are being made, if any, with regards to evacuations, adjustments to ensuring that the public is evacuated safely, as well as the first responders and the workers for the county are protected in this measure?
Yeah, you know, in all hurricane seasons, and we've been working on, excuse me, on the, can I get some water? On the evacuation plan for some months now. We've been working on, you know, making sure that we're following best practices to where it's a phased approach, and it's really something close to last resort. It's not something that you want to take lightly. We've seen it in the past. Everybody remembers the horror stories from Rita when, you know, more people died trying to evacuate than not. So we're continually evaluating that. Now, in terms of what may change with COVID particularly is the sheltering. And so those are the questions we're going through right now. We're still in process of figuring out exactly how we would do sheltering that is safe. So I can't announce, you know, that we've got it all solved and this is how we do it, but we are working on it ahead of hurricane season because we recognize, you know, regardless of how much preparation, regardless of how much flood insurance, when there have been these heavy rains, inevitably there are people left who need a place to be, a place to stay.
Does that mean that larger facilities might be called upon much sooner than in the past because they do have that space to provide social distancing?
It depends. You know, this is the question that we're working through with our partners, with our nonprofit partners, with the Red Cross. And so whether that's larger facilities, whether it's different processes or more smaller facilities, those are the systems, thank you, those are the systems that we're working on right now.
Here at TransStar, there is an operations center in which we've been in there before. Jeff, obviously, you know it very well. Everyone's very much close together in the operations to get the latest information out there to keep the public safe. Internally in that facility there, what adjustments are being made to properly separate everyone considering how tight the facility is?
Yeah, we're basically managing this disaster remotely. Normally you come in here and there's a buzz of people, you know, all over our floor where we have representatives from all law enforcement agencies, the liaisons to the ones that aren't here, the representatives of the petrochemical industry, if need be, the Red Cross, et cetera, the state we normally have here. This time you walk onto the floor and it's almost an eerie, silence. And so, one conversation I've had with our county department heads, and we continue to have, and it's the message that Dr. Shaw was sharing just now. You know, just because you can be here, just because you can reopen, doesn't mean you should. And we certainly don't want to be the folks that are causing the spread of the virus. So to the greatest extent possible, all of us continue to ask our own employees to work from home as much as they can. We're trying to digitize as many procedures as we possibly can, whether that be, you know, making you know, books available digitally or safer rentals, different ways for folks to engage with the county. We're even looking at online meetings for flood control community engagement. So know that we in the county are adjusting just as much as you guys are, and recognize that this is not a short-term thing. This virus is with us for a while. And so when I hear some folks saying, you know, I'm not essential, I'm not reopened, but I'm getting ready to go back and I'm gonna rearrange, you know, the seating area, you know, we all know that the virus spreads through close contact. And so at least until we begin finding a vaccine, a treatment, we're gonna have to continue working together to encourage that distancing, because that's what's going to keep the virus from spreading.
But with regards to that facility, do you plan to make changes inside that room, as I indicated and I asked? Or do you plan to make changes in the way that room is laid out right now? You indicated we're going to have people working at home, but in that room, that is a control center. People are close together. What changes do you plan to make to that, if any?
So I think you're asking, you know, during a disaster, normally we have a room with all kinds of first responders there, and we're in a disaster right now that doesn't require any fewer people just because it's a virus. Even now we have to coordinate with cities, with counties, with school districts, with the state arms that oversee some of the services we have to connect with public health, with the technology arm, our law enforcement partners, our county partners. But we're not all there in the room. We've found ways to meet digitally, and we're going to have to find ways to do the same during a disaster in the shape of a hurricane. So, you know, we're not going to be tearing up tables or anything that's bolted down to the ground. We may not fill them as we are just now. You know, you walk in and it's pretty much empty. But that's why we have technology to think, and it's a silver lining to this whole thing is in many ways folks have been able to accelerate their transition to technological solutions, and I have to admit we've done some of that as well.
With regards to recent headlines, there have been many questions since you asked the public to post any businesses violating Governor Abbott's order. How many complaint forms has your office received?
We asked from the beginning of this pandemic the community to partner with us, and that's why we've been successful. We've not avoided this crisis in exhibiting itself the way it has in places like New York or other countries. We've not avoided that fate because we've got some sort of special immunity or because we're unique. We've done so because we've worked together. And so from the very first order we issued over a month ago, I think, we've had a line where folks can report violations that they see. People have consistently been asking, you know, and emailing us and calling us and saying, hey, I have this concern, where can I report? Normally for the city they call 311. For us, we have this number. We're setting up our own 311 separately. But so that's something that we've put online since Friday. You know, that's existed for months. Now, since Friday when I signed the order reflective of Governor Abbott's order, we've received around 480 complaints from residents in Harris County who had a concern that they wanted to call our line and report, and we've dispatched that either to our own law enforcement agencies or to others to follow up. But that's nothing different from what we've done all throughout this. We've always said from the start, we're not a police state. We can't have a police officer outside of every business or on every street corner. Instead, we rely on residents, on everyday people to do their part and to say, hey, I'm really nervous about this employer who's making me come to work and I know shouldn't, and I'm worried about my family, I'm worried about my health, and who do I tell? Where can I share? And so that's the line that's existed and the online form that's existed now for months. That's nothing new.
Of the complaints that were received so far, how many of them are legit and how many are spam or fake? Did spammers overwhelm the system and crash it?
Yeah, there was an effort this past weekend from a fringe, out of town. The IP addresses were mostly out of town, but out of town groups opposed to life-saving measures that were trying to submit complaints. Now, I don't know how many were filed. What I do know is there were 480 or over 480 complaints by real people in Harris County, concerned about their health. And as I've said, this out-of-state fringe attempt, it reflects the same thing we began seeing last week. We've been working incredibly well across political parties, across different jurisdictions throughout this diverse county. And if we want to stand here a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and look back and say we were successful in dealing with coronavirus, we're going to have to continue to do that. And so, I'm going to continue to focus on health and safety. Politics, polling, protests have no space in my mind. I'm focused on health, safety, and the health advice that I receive from doctors, from experts, from folks like Dr. Shaw or like Jeff Linder when we're talking about hurricanes.
You indicated that you received about 480, Judge Hidalgo. Have you been able to identify, again, how many are actual violations, and were some of those calls to the same location?
As I said, is 480, above 480, I don't know the exact number, but actual complaints from real people in Harris County who are saying, hey man, this isn't about you who's violating this order. We know that this is a contagious virus. We know that it spreads from person to person. We know that it spreads through close contact. We know that it's deadly and it's killed tens of thousands in this country, that it's overwhelmed hospital systems the world over, that if all of a sudden we all open at once, we're gonna have the kind of tragic situations we've seen elsewhere. And so I'm worried about these folks not doing their part. I would like to inform someone about it. Here's my report. So those are the reports we've seen. We're at 480. They're real, actual complaints. I don't have more detail beyond that.
What are your thoughts on businesses that are just not listening and just saying, we're going to operate, we're going to open up, and we're going to continue to try to relaunch the way we want to?
I was in Burroughs Park this weekend. I went to Burroughs Park in Northwest Harris County, and I saw the same thing I see when I go out, and it's folks being incredibly responsible and taking personal responsibility for their health and the health of their community. It was people, and clearly it was just close family, groups of 2-3 people, a parent and a couple kids, 2 parents and a couple kids. It was, and folks were keeping very good distance from one another. When I went to pick up food at a few restaurants, everybody was wearing a mask. I continue to be just grateful and awed and impressed by the response in the community and folks recognizing that this isn't about them, this is about all of us. And if we want to give the reopening timeline any chance of success, it's got to be very slow. Otherwise, we'll have an outbreak again, and our contact tracers won't be able to keep up. And so we're building that up as much as we can, as quickly as we can. But look, the impact of folks who are not being part of the solution, part of the response, will be felt in 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, when we'll begin seeing symptoms and hospital admissions. Right now, just from anecdotal, evidence and what we've been able to glean, my sense is the vast majority of people have been incredibly responsible, taking that personal responsibility, as our folks in our county always do, and that it's very limited folks who are trying to make a political statement, just trying to get some attention during a crisis because they can, but we'll see the numbers in 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, and hope that it works. And in the meantime, of course, I'm doing more than hope, and that's why we're working pretty much 24/7 with our public health team to be ready to test, to contain, and map out contacts. But yeah, if it gets too big, it's just physically impossible to do that. So we continue to need everybody's help, and my sense is folks really are doing their part.
We'll take the last question, Mike.
We have two more. During a time when there is a call for unity, some say your executive order is creating division by telling people to essentially snitch. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, we're trying to work together. We've been working together. The evidence of the fact that we've worked together is the fact that we haven't had an outbreak like other places. In terms of where folks can report a violation, a concern that they have, that they're scared, that they see an employer who's forcing them to come to work that they know shouldn't be open, a business where they know a lot of people are coming into close contact, and they're doing this not for themselves but for the community as a whole. We've always had a way for people to report. We don't have any other way to do it. We can't be a police state. That's not who we are. We can't send somebody into every single restaurant and every single street corner. And so we've always had a place where folks can report violations. Other jurisdictions have that. I mean, it's the only way that we can find out what's going on. So, and in terms of the order, I've been clarifying, and we need to continue to make sure it's clear. As the governor's order made clear, and then the Attorney General's clarification later on at the end of last week, that folks who are essential can open, folks who've been reopened by the governor can open, everybody else should not open. And in fact, those who can open shouldn't necessarily open. And that's what my order says. It is straight aligned with the governor's order. And remember, I've made these decisions based on what's best for our community. I don't derive any benefit in any way from saying, folks need to remain closed. What I see is a virus that spreads from person to person, that if all of a sudden folks decide we're done, we're back to normal, this is great, we're going to have a crisis. And I don't want that to happen on my watch. So I'm going to continue to be doing everything the healthcare professionals and the doctors tell me to do to make sure that we're preparing our community. And, folks who want their 15 minutes in the spotlight, I'm not going to give it to them.
Final question. Over the weekend, obviously through Twitter and your tweet, you asked the public to weigh in with their thoughts if someone has information of a potential violation. A few months ago, Channel 2 Investigates brought to you credible information of a potential violation within the county. Over 1,000 pieces of African art being stored in a refurbished county maintenance shed on the taxpayer's dime. At the time when we brought this to you, your response to us was, quote, "If you want me to say something negative, I am not going to do that." Why is your position of what you want the public to do different from your own actions?
Again, I'm not trying to get into a political battle here, Mario. We're talking about literally life-saving information. We need folks to buy flood insurance or extend their insurance if they have it, to make sure that they have a kit.
But we're
that they're
asking you about
prepared.
that question.
You need to let me finish. So we need people's help to stay abreast of, folks asked from the beginning, well, how will you know if a restaurant's at 25% capacity? We don't know unless somebody says, hey, something is happening. We've had folks from the very beginning of this order saying, look, my employer's forcing me to work. I'm sick. I can't do this. Who do I tell? I saw a big crowd. They're going to get folks sick. My grandma, their grandma could die from this. And so this is not a joke. Some folks are trying to derive political benefits from this. I don't come out stronger asking people to stay home or asking certain businesses to remain closed or asking folks to wear a mask. Tell me what kind of political benefit that gives me. It doesn't. And if some folks have political disagreements, I will debate them when it comes time to run for re-election. But right now, I'm trying to keep people alive. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. En español? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Gracias.